Looks like it's 2 o'clock and we can get started. Welcome to the joint meeting of the West Turlock Subbasin GSA Technical Advisory Committee and the East Turlock Subbasin GSA Technical Advisory Committee. It's September 22nd, 2022, and it's 2 o'clock. Like to welcome you to the meeting. We should call to order the 7 agency representatives from the West. I'm here with this for the City of Houston.
Here.
City of Modesto. City of Turlock. City of Waterford.
Here.
Delhi.
Here.
Denair. Hilmar. Keys. Stanislaus County. Merced County.
Lacey's here.
Okay. Turlock Irrigation District.
I'm here. This is Debbie.
Hi, Debbie. Okay. Sarah, to you.
Thanks. And it's looking like I don't have a quorum yet. I think Lacey is the only, and myself are the only 2 from East Side. So we'll need at least 1 more.
Jennifer, did we have 7? I wasn't counting as I read.
I believe we only have 6.
Okay.
That was my count as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like a few more people are joining. I see some tiles moving around. I see Christy just joined us. So with Stanislaus County, that will give us 7.
Okay.
And that'll give me 3. So I'll have
good.
a quorum as well. So we're good. Good to go.
Okay. Let's see. Participation. This is a time set aside for members of the public to directly address the Turlock Subbasin Technical Advisory Committees on any items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Technical Advisory Committee, and to address the committee on any item that is posted on the agenda. Members of the public will be allowed 5 minutes for comments. If you wish to speak regarding, oops, I lost my spot. If you wish to speak regarding any item on the agenda, you may be asked to defer your remarks until the Technical Advisory Committee addresses the matter. No action or discussion may be taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Hearing none. Item number 4, approval of the minutes of the August 25th, 2022 regular joint meeting of the West Turlock Subbasin and East Subbasin GSA Technical Advisory Committee. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from August 25th?
This is Christy. I can make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second. This is Debbie Montalbano with TID.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, so the East Side needs to also approve these minutes. And so can I get a first and a second from the East Side group? Lacey, Christy, Rochambeau for that.
I can make that motion.
Thanks, Christy. Can I get a second? Thanks. Okay, so I'll do a quick roll call. Christy?
Yes.
Lacey?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So motion carries for East Side.
Okay, quickly on to number 5. Resolution of the West Turlock Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Agency Technical Advisory Committee recognizing the state of emergency proclaimed by the governor on March 4th of 2020, which remains in effect, and reauthorizing the remote teleconferencing meetings of the West Turlock GSA TAC for the period through October 4th, 2022 through November 3rd, 2022, pursuant to the Brown Act provisions. Sorry. Can we get a recommended action by the West Turlock GSA to adopt this?
Is it something that's going to have a definite beginning?
To continue our remote conferencing?
I'll make a recommendation, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I will second Karen.
Thank you. So this will need to be a roll call. Jennifer, would you like to do that?
Absolutely. And it looks like we've had member Alvarez join us, so I'll go ahead and update the notes to reflect that as well.
Okay,
And then I'll call the roll. I have member Alvarez,
Yes.
member Jareggi,
Here.
thank you. Member McBride,
Yes.
member McKinnon,
Yes.
member Maldonado,
Yes.
member Montalbano,
Yes.
member Pitcock,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Morgan.
yes.
Thank you very much. It looks like Matt Beeman has also joined us, and so I'll go ahead and update the notes to reflect his arrival as well.
Okay, Sarah, do you need to take the same action?
No, we did it. We did the same action at our
Okay.
board meeting earlier today, so we're covered.
Okay. And then we'll have item number 6 is a budget update by Michael Clipper for the West Turlock GSA, and then Sarah Wolf with the East Turlock GSA. Michael?
Yes. Oops. I'm trying to find. Well, you guys may not see. Oh, here we go. For the West Turlock account, for August, the ending balance was $154,027.32. We had 4 checks post for $7,289 for the month. For the basin account, we ended the month with $667,706.48. We had 8 checks clear, or I'm sorry, 7 checks clear for a total of $122,116.35. Any questions?
Okay, I can give the East Turlock Subbasin balance sheet. So in August, we had a balance of $299,697.62. Earlier today at our board meeting, we approved paying the bills of $32,036.44, leaving us with a balance in September of $267,661.18. And that's the account balances for East Turlock.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 7, the Opti system framework. This is a discussion regarding the Opti system framework for the Turlock Subbasin GSP projects. Debbie Montalbano.
Thank you. So this is actually in coordination with Miguel. At the last West Turlock GSA meeting, and I believe there's been conversations at the East Turlock TAC meeting as well, that the GSP identified that there was a need to have an ongoing updatable project list for the GSPs or the GSP as we move forward. Many of the grant funding opportunities out there will require that a project be included in the GSP. And so that's why we identified the ongoing updatable lists that are incorporated into the integrated regional planning processes as a means of doing that. So not only would those projects be perhaps eligible for integrated regional planning funding, but it would also provide that updatable list concept. So there are 2 integrated regional planning regions within our subbasin. So it complicates things a little bit. But we've been working with Woodard and Kern, who administers the OPTI system, which provides the list for the integrated regional planning process for the East Stanislaus region. And we've been working with them on a scope of work to update that list to facilitate the ability to identify Sigma-specific projects for the Turlock Subbasin. And that work is ongoing, and we'll provide updates to the tax as that moves forward. But we're encouraging local public agencies to incorporate their projects into the integrated regional planning list, or OPTI, at this time, and then they can be updated to indicate that they're Sigma related projects when that's available. And so at the last TAC meeting, Miguel gave a presentation on walking through kind of how to make that work and how to sign up and what it looks like. And so this item on the agenda was to further that discussion and maybe answer any questions. If anyone has had any questions on how to get into the OPTI system and how it works and what have you. So so that's what I had on this item. Miguel, did you want to add anything?
You know what? I think you got it well covered, Debbie.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Has anyone tried to log in and get send the email that's required to get a login for the OPTI system? Are there any questions on how it works? Has anyone kind of tried to do it, or?
Debbie, I'll just note that putting in the chat right now a YouTube link from the last meeting where Miguel gave an overview. So people could take a look at that if they need to, and it provides, it's 20 minutes because Miguel gave a thorough presentation, but it's well worth it. So if anyone needs that as a resource, it's there. Thank
you, Herb, for the reminder on that. Yes, we did kind of clip out that portion of the meeting to make it available for everyone, and I think an email was sent out as well. So there's lots of information available. Miguel also provided his contact information if you had any direct questions. So please feel free to reach out to him or us about that process. But again, if there's a project that agencies wish to incorporate into the GSP and perhaps be able to be funded for grant funding in the future, we're encouraging everyone to put that into the system. So I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions.
I was lucky enough that my login still worked. I like this tool quite a bit. I used it when I was in the city of Waterford to enter a lot of stormwater projects when we were updating the integrated water management plan, the IRWM. I think my favorite thing about it is looking at the map. And it's very interesting to see how many projects there are all over the map, because you can kind of see what your neighbors are doing and where. That's just my take on it. So I encourage everybody to take a look. So on to 8 then, Debbie. Are you good?
Yes.
Okay, so management action update, discussion regarding groundwater extraction measurement, accounting, and fee options being evaluated within the East Turlock Subbasin, which will be the subject of a workshop scheduled for October 18th, 2022. And Mike Tietze is here to talk about that, I hope.
Yeah, I know he may not quite be on yet. So
we could skip and come back.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead? If he doesn't join, I have the slides and I can show them. So why don't we just do a couple of the other items and then maybe we circle back.
That sounds good. Okay, so number 9, round 2 Sigma implementation grant application, discussion regarding planning for development and submittal of a grant application on behalf of the Turlock Subbasin. That's got Mike Tietze as well. Do we want to hold off on that?
Maybe go down to the next one and then we
10?
can circle back.
Okay,
Because
Sorry
in
about
case
that.
he has additional information that he
Okay.
wants to add. Mhm.
okay. So the joint meeting schedule of the technical advisory committees, discussion regarding the regular joint meeting schedule of the West Turlock and the East Turlock Subbasins, GSAs. Michael Cook, who is not here, I am here, and then Sarah Wolf.
Yes. Do we, I'm gonna look to Jennifer and see, do we have a schedule or are we just talking about, we want to keep these going?
It's my understanding that there may have been some discussion at either ad hoc or coordination meetings about possibly identifying a different date for the regular meeting schedule, that it may present some challenges. For example, it may present some challenges for the East Turlock team as some of your board meetings either fall on the same day or within a close time frame. So it doesn't give you much time to prepare for either adding additional items that need to be addressed by the board or by the TAC. And if there was, any flexibility in terms of identifying different dates that may work a little bit better for that sake.
Thank you, Jennifer. That helped
You're welcome.
tremendously. It jogged my memory. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Yes. So on the joint meeting day today, we have our East Turlock GSA board meeting in the morning. And so I think that there's oftentimes that, we have issues that we bring to this joint TAC that we then want to bring to our board for approval. And it requires us to wait another 30 days. So it hasn't been a problem, but I think just the concept of maybe if we could structure this or put this on a different date, it might allow for East Turlock at least to more quickly respond to action items that might need to be taken by our board after a TAC recommendation.
So I think the idea that Jennifer and Sarah mentioned it was the concept of perhaps moving it to a different date. And we put this on the agenda to allow for conversation about it. And then we could reach out to the different TAC members to perhaps see what the availability of a different date might be, and then work through what the requirements might be to establish another regularly scheduled meeting and all of that. And we can work through it and come back with a recommendation. So is there any, I guess the concept was, is there any thoughts with respect to, or concerns with respect to moving the date? Or is that something that would be amenable to the TAC members?
I'm flexible.
I have a quick follow-up question, and I'm sorry if this was something that Sarah had covered in her response. I unfortunately am out in the open, and so I'm getting a little bit of crosstalk just from things that are going on here in the office and also trying to keep one ear on the meeting. So my apologies. Sarah, if we were to potentially swap the regular meeting date of the joint TAC with the special meeting date of the West Turlock TAC, would that be a possibility? So right now, as you may be aware, we have the second and fourth Thursday reserved for TAC meetings. The second Thursday is primarily used for special meetings of the West Turlock group, and then the fourth Thursday is used for the joint meetings of the West and East Turlock group. And so I was thinking if, I think it's great if people are flexible, and maybe this is an opportunity for others to indicate whether or not, a different day would be better all the way around. But in the event that, people have carved out time on those Thursdays, if it would be, at all feasible to just swap, maybe that would be a little bit easier on folks' schedules. And that's just food for thought. It's just something that Debbie and Michael and I were talking about the other day.
Yeah, I think from the East Turlock side, that would be very doable. And yeah, I had forgotten that you guys have that date saved. And so, yeah, that might be a great option for us at least.
Okay, great. Then as Debbie had mentioned, unless anyone has any other feedback or comments that they want to provide now, I can send out a follow-up email that just basically reiterates some of this information and kind of giving me ideas of what some potential changes or other options would be, this being one of them, and just see what type of feedback we get from our members. And I'm happy to do the same too for East Turlock, unless of course you want to do that, Sarah.
I think that would be great. Just get
Okay.
all the responses into one place would be very helpful.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, very good. Item 11, Sigma related updates, opportunity for TAC members to discuss and provide updates on issues related to Sigma. And a list of topics could include but are not limited to the list below. Debbie, this is kind of your area, isn't it? The grant updates and Herb communication outreach.
Yes,
Okay.
generally speaking. Herb, did you have anything with respect to outreach? If not, I'll fill in on the others. Okay, so I do have a few updates, just to let everyone know that we are working on a couple of proposals to bring back to the tax for the recommendation, hopefully at the next meeting. One will be a proposal for developing a plan on what to do if we have exceedances of the minimum thresholds or anticipate to have exceedances of those. We're working with Todd Groundwater on developing that. And then the other is a proposal for both the annual report for this coming year, as well as the monitoring and reporting of inputting all of the information into the DWR database that we have to do every 6 months or so on the monitoring data that we gather for the water levels. And so we'll hope to have that to you as well for next month to move that forward. Also note that the monitoring levels, so the fall measurements are due to be done between the beginning of October and I think the middle of November. And there are a variety of people that work on coordinating that effort. Mike Tietze is one, Karen Morgan is one. There's staff here at TID. And so we have been communicating on that and planning for that for this fall's measurements. And those will be taken the beginning of November through the middle of November. So those first 2 weeks in November, that's our targeted date. And then that information, once we have the approval for moving forward with the contract that I just mentioned, we'll be able to work with Todd Groundwater to get those posted on DWR's website. So that's what I have for you with respect to updates at this point in time. We are still working with the existing grant on identifying the well locations and all of that. And we'll have more information on that at the next meeting as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions somebody might have.
Debbie, this is Herb. I'll just note from the communications end, I have nothing additional to add other than the production, I guess, would be a kind of wrong word to use, but the video of the Opti clip from the last West Turlock Subbasin meeting. I think it was just a West Turlock Subbasin meeting that's available, and I put that in the chat. Other than that, we continue moving along with putting postings on the website and emails on a semi-regular basis. So that's it for me. I missed earlier because I was away from my desk.
You heard.
Okay, sounds good. We see Mike is here now. We're going to go back to item 8, to the management action update. Discussion regarding groundwater extraction measurement, accounting, and fee options being evaluated within the East Turlock GSA. Mike Tietze.
Thank you so much. I was just getting ready to message Sarah to ask if I was too late. So I just wanted to give folks just a brief update as to what we're doing. and maybe update you on some of our preliminary baseline findings, just so that you can kind of know what we're up to in case it triggers any thoughts regarding additional things we should be doing. So see if I'm able to share my screen. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and. All right, looks like I can't get to my own navigation bar here, but I think you can see this. So what we're doing is a workshop on baseline ET, looking at groundwater demand and looking at land use analysis. So that's our baseline. And what we're wanting to use the baseline for is to set the discussion for, how do we manage groundwater pumping in East Turlock Subbasin? And specifically, how do we establish a baseline that we measure ourselves against? How do we measure? And then how does that relate to potential options for fees? This is the first in a series of 3 workshops. The second will be in December, and the third will be in February. So our land use and ET analysis is in progress. To date, we've looked at the land use data that's available from DWR, that's 4 years, looked at changes over time, looked at precipitation trends, and looked at ET consumptive use by field and GSA wide, and then, sliced and diced that various different ways to help, inform our overall analysis and overall effort. And the ET data set that's used for that is the Cal ETA data set that Formation developed for DWR, some time ago. And it extends from 2003 to 2021, with 2003 being the date that Spatial CIMMYS, that's irrigation scheduling and climatic data program, was first available. The work that is still in progress is we're wanting to compare the calculated ET, evapotranspiration, to metered pumping and surface water deliveries. So the ET, in theory, represents consumptive use or evaporation from the ground or open water bodies. And it may not line up precisely with the metered pumping or surface water deliveries. In fact, I can tell you it probably doesn't measure up quite accurately, but we want to get a better sense for exactly, how close is it, what are the different influences on it and so forth, so that people can understand what it is that we have. The primary thing that we're using it for at this point is for trend analysis and for analysis of our baseline condition, so that we have a better idea of how would we cut back pumping from there. The other thing that we're including, that we're performing, is an orchard age and productivity analysis that uses a similar data set and allows us to see, how productive is the orchard, and how close, where does it appear to be in its life cycle, which is typically about 20 years. So this is an example of, 2 snapshots of East Turlock Subbasin. This one here is from 2003. This is from 2021. This is taken from Landsat data, which is on 30 meter, on a 30-meter grid. And basically what's done is some of the reflectance bandwidths are used, cloud cover is removed, and then there's ground surface climatic data, humidity, temperature, insolation, some other things that figure into calculating an ET using the energy balance method. There's several different methods. I won't go into those here. This just is one of them. And what you see here is you see the field outlines from the DWR land use data set, and those are the green lines, and then the orange is toward our lower end of ET. Now this is annualized, so this is all year long, not just the growing season. So if you see evaporation from fields here, this is not just the time period during which irrigation is applied, but it also is for the rest of the year. So, and you can see that it ranges at the low end. Well, there's a few parcels that are in the 2 to 15 inch range and a few that go up above 50 inches. So this gives you an idea of what kind of data is available for land use by crop. East Turlock Subbasin, we have about 67%. It was identified as almonds in 2019. We have a total cropped area of about 85,000 acres. And there's 9 crop categories that make up 98% of everything. But the big one is the almonds. And then we have vineyards, and then some forage, and then below that pasture land goes all the way down to 5%. Almond ET was pretty consistent. Now, here's 2 caveats. First caveat is this is annualized, right? So this includes the rainy season, not just, so don't take this as consumptive use of applied water and irrigation. And the second is that I'm not vouching at this point for the accuracy of this number, okay? We're still working on the validation. We'll take a closer look at that. And as we decide how to use this as a, if we just ever decide to use this as more than just sort of a baseline assessment tool, then we'll work on improving these numbers over time. So I just wanted to offer that caveat so that you don't misunderstand the data. But 44.6 inches year round, that's probably not out of the question. Normally, you'd expect somewhere between 3 and 4 feet for almonds. This is probably a little on the high side, but sort of in the ballpark. And it was fairly constant over the period from 2004 to 2021. We can also extract this data for all of the other crop types. This shows you some other things that we can do. We can look at spatial changes. So again, these are fields that were outlined based on the 2019 data. And in this case, there was nothing going on in these fields. These were probably open rangeland or pasture land in 2004, and then developed as vineyards. And here you see the vineyards are kind of in the in-between, cool colors, less than the almonds, more than the open pasture land. So that's consistent with that, vineyards generally have a lower water demand, lower consumptive use than the almonds do. But we can assess these kinds of spatial trend changes over time. Precipitation analysis, I won't belabor that other than to say that if you take the short-term average from about 2004 to present, our average rainfall is about 1 inch lower using the PRISM data set than it is if you take the long-term average. So that's something to consider. Ag consumptive use, of course, if we use the whole water year, it's 100%, 90% in March through October. So this is ET. 90% of the ET occurs March through October. 60% occurs May to September. So this is the peak irrigation season. That has some implications. If you look at year-round ET and precipitation, sort of the lazy man's way of getting to ET or consumptive use of applied water would be to take your precipitation and to subtract it from your ET. But the fact is that does not account for run-on, run-off, or deep percolation. So you see that there's a discrepancy, and the discrepancy changes from year to year. So actually, this correlation is not quite as good as we would like it to be. What we do see is an increasing trend in total ET from 2004 to 2012. And then from 2013 to 2021, it's pretty stable. This is a key walkaway. So it looks like a lot of the land use and ET and groundwater pumping changes on the east side took place in this period up to about the recent drought, and that since that time things have stabilized, which makes sense. That's when the groundwater ordinances were passed, and talking to growers, the expansion of vineyards and orchards really slowed down after that time period in our area. This is just going straight, and we can analyze any time period. In this case, we're looking at peak irrigation season. That helps to take out some of the confounding differences between ETA and subtracting out precipitation, because there's not much precipitation to account for. It's an average of 0.6 inches during those months compared to 12.5 total. And what you see, this is the ETA over the whole period of analysis. You see an increasing trend if you fit a single line, but if you break it up into those two time periods, you see the increase happened up to about the recent, the 2012 to 2016 drought, and then after that time, things stabilized. They go up and down from year to year, but they've been pretty stable. And this is just another way to kind of slice and dice the data. We'll make this simpler in the future. But what you see here is 2004 to 2012. Next slide is the same thing. It'll show 2013 to 2021. These are all the fields that are currently developed with almonds. But you can see that in 2004, the ET was very low. These weren't developed in almonds yet, and then the development took place over this time period. So we can see how things changed over time. These are the different ET bins. We can see that in 2004, there were a lot of these fields that are now in almonds. The water demand, the consumptive use was very, very low. And then over time, these were developed into these, which these are your almond orchards. So this went away and was developed into this. And again, we can do this for any crop. Here it is from 2013 to 2021, and you can see that the pattern doesn't change as much here. For some other crops, especially for annual crops, for forage, sorghum, corn, Sudan, you see these flipping back and forth between lower and higher depending on how a field is used from year to year. But for permanent crops, you see a pretty steady distribution. And this is just almond acreage over time. You can see it follows the same pattern. And that is it. So I just wanted to give you a flavor for this and see if there was any feedback, any questions. And if none, that's fine.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
That's pretty interesting. So on to number 9, the Round 2 Sigma Implementation Grant Application, discussion regarding planning for development and submittal of a grant application on behalf of the Turlock Subbasin. And this is with Debbie and Mike again.
Thank you, Karen. So as you know, several months ago, we received approval to contract with Todd Groundwater to begin developing a grant application. We expect the round 2 of the Sigma implementation grant PSP to be released early October, we've heard. And so we are beginning to work through that. The West Turlock authorized an ad hoc committee to work through that. I have been reaching out to those that have typically participated in the planning meetings as an initial group to begin working on the ad hoc committee to help develop this grant application. If there are others that wish to participate, please let me know. We've started to work through a list of projects, and we are coordinating with the Department of Water Resources staff who are going to be administering the grants to talk to them about the specifics of what they expect to be released in October, so we can further refine those lists. potential projects and get back to this group. As a reminder, we expect that it's one grant application for a basin, and the amount of money expected is anywhere between $1 and $20 million. And it's going to be a competitive process. And so we're trying to develop a better understanding of what the grant requirements are to refine the project list to be more competitive as we move forward. So we'll be getting back to this group on what we find out, and then reaching out and coordinating with the TACs as well as the GSAs on the projects that we're recommending and what that means to get the necessary approvals to move forward. I'm told that as far as what we're going to need to provide, it will be similar to what we've done in the past, which is developing a grant application that describes the projects, obviously, and kind of lays the groundwork as to why we're seeking funding for those projects and how it will relate to the GSP and how it will implement it, and kind of telling that story. We're going to need letters of support, and so we'll need to begin to work through that process as well. I'm hoping that we could get letters of support from each of the agencies and then reach out to interested parties within the subbasin as well. We will also need a resolution from the GSAs on how we're administering the grant and the approval to apply for the grant. And so we'll work with the GSAs on that as well. So this is just to kind of let everyone know that we're beginning that process. So there are, I can take and look at my list. I can kind of give you an idea of some of the items that we're talking about. And this, it will change as we move forward. Some of the items we're talking about, including is the well installations. That's something we've talked about on an ongoing basis. We're identifying locations now and doing some preliminary design. And so the idea is to ask for funding to install those new dedicated monitoring wells, both along the rivers, all three rivers, as well as over on the western side where we're lacking dedicated monitoring wells. And so that's a part of it. There'll be a separate project, I think, to request for installation of transducers in the dedicated monitoring wells. So we have ongoing water level measurements, which might be helpful. There's been a conversation about continuing to evaluate groundwater dependent ecosystems, or GDEs. As you recall, there was an analysis that Karen completed along with help from Todd Groundwater to evaluate preliminary evaluation of GDEs. But having a biologist take that step further may be very helpful. It's one of the items that we received comments on as the GSP was developed. There are a variety of pilot projects that would like that are being considered on the east side in particular for recharge, and so there's an idea of developing a master recharge plan that could take and pull all of the recharge projects together and develop a coordinated plan moving forward that could be used not only for outreach purposes, but also kind of provide guidance as we move forward for developing the most cost-effective and efficient recharge mechanisms within the different areas of the subbasin, and kind of get to where I think initially thought we might be as we developed the GSP. we just didn't have time as we developed the GSP to take that next step. We identified some projects, but weren't able to do the additional planning and other things to pull it together in a way that might be very helpful. So that's on the table as well. We're still crafting some ideas with respect to that. We're also talking about a data management system that might be helpful as the GSAs move forward, and that might also integrate like an online management portal for East Turlock as they're beginning to implement management practices. There may be a metering perhaps as well for East Turlock, and so that kind of gives you an idea of some of the items that we're talking about. There's also a project that the TID has that may be very helpful for the subbasin as well. In that there's a series of dams that surround Turlock Lake that need to be rehabilitated, and if they are, they will allow water levels to be much higher in the lake, and that will help with flood management and with recharge and the ability to bring water in and distribute it downstream. A large number of items in there as well. There could be some benefit to the river. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the items that we're talking about. And that's what I had right now, just information. We'll be coming back to you with more as we move forward. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Hearing none. That moves us to our next item, which is number 12. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 27th, 2022. Do you have anything else, Sarah?
I don't.
Okay, well then that leads us to our adjournment. Can we get a motion to do so?
I'll move. This is Debbie.
Thank you.
Second, Waterford.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor, say aye.
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 Everyone opposed, say no. Okay, good. To you, Sarah.
Okay. All right, East Side, let's do ours real quickly here. First to adjourn.
This is Matt. I'll move.
Thanks, Matt. A second.
Lacey will second.
Thanks, Lacey. Quick roll call. Matt,
Yes.
Lacey,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
and I vote yes, and we are adjourned also.
Okay, sounds like we're done at 2:48. Thank you, everyone.